Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up with me. Fed Up Gaz, soon to be MOSH SHINOBI, so I won't be so fed up anymore, hopefully. Joining me today is Aaron from the Lumbar Endeavor. How is it going today, man?
Great, great. Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm really excited to get into this. So, we've been talking a lot off air, and we were looking at the artwork, which is absolutely fantastic. So I thought if we could start maybe uh, with some of we'll go through the covers and starting with revisiting the darkest of days, which I'm going to try and show you an example of, folks, and so we can give a nod to the artist and just do a little deep dive on those covers as well. So, I'm curious, did you work with the artist to bring all of these ideas to life, or did they have a free reign on the various covers?
Yeah, CVSPE has done everything for me that every cover that has been the Lumbar Endeavor that is original material,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the Sleep Dope Smoker cover. They did that as well. And I came upon their work. I was fascinated by their style, reached out to them. They were interested in doing the first one. And I said, okay, but I think I'm going to release quite a few of these, maybe 5 or 6. And they said, I'm down. I can do that. And I said, okay, one every month, though. I've got a lot of material. And I said, can you agree to that? And they said, definitely. We've never met in person. And the first 3 records, I would say, I had, as an art director myself over the years, I had some ideas on what I wanted to do. And then every release after, I just give them the title of the record and they give me art. There's actually been 2 releases too that are still yet to come out, where I said, create art for me and I will name the record after your art. So
Wow.
yeah, CVSPE is this artist by those initials. That's how they would like to be known. Is and such an integral part of the Lumbar Endeavor. They are my only other full-time member in this project, and I wouldn't be releasing as much as I have if it wasn't for them. They inspire me to create more music, for sure.
That's going to be one of the most interesting answers I've had, because I'm used to asking, so, where do you draw your inspirations and influences from, which I will get into musically, but to hear that an artist essentially keeps your passion and love for this going,
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard anyone else say that yet, actually.
For sure. And if your viewers can look at the last release, Waves of Heat,
Yeah.
that art, I didn't have a title for that record until CVSP gave me the art, and I was like, I now have an idea. So they are just so key and important to what I do, for sure.
Do you know what that's making me think already, Aaron? My nerdy imagination. It reminds me of those writing exercises people do at college, where they'll put an object in front of you, say, right, literally block everything out for 1 minute, and then the end of that 1 minute, write a title or a prose, something connected to that object, whatever it is. And so I'm getting the impression it's kind of like a musical version of that. Seeing the art and cover, and then, right, I'm going to actually name the title of the album based on the art.
Definitely. Or if we were working on, or if we were working on the soundtrack for a movie, and the
Yeah.
movie is completed already, and we have to create the sound for the movie in the exact time that's already been set up. I love those kinds of parameters. Uh,
Mm.
I love a good, most of my friends or my family would tell you, I love being set up for failure and coming through with something at least interesting. Maybe not successful, but interesting. I love when someone says, Aaron, can you write a whole record in one weekend? And I go, I can. And they go, okay, but a good one. And I say, I'll try.
Yeah.
And I love those kinds of projects.
just before I comment on that, I've tried to add the different album covers in the background to show the audience, and sadly StreamYard is not letting me do that. If anybody knows there's a way I can do it, then please contact me after the show so I know for the future, because the plan was we were going to show you the various covers from the releases, which would have been great, and you could get a visual. So the next best thing, if you go to the lumbarendeavor.bandcamp.com, you'll see it at the bottom of the screen going across now, the URL, and you can see all the covers on there. So I'm getting another impression as well. You're a person that thrives when you're under that pressure and being told, no, you can't do this. No, I will rise to that challenge, and I will come up with something, which, yes, is kind of like, right, we need short film by the end of the week, movie by the end of the week, first episode or something as well. So that must be so interesting as well, because it's constantly keeping you very active. I'm not saying everyone has their own way how to do music, so I'm not bashing anybody else's method, but it's a sense of, it's not allowing you to rest on your laurels. You've got to keep going. You've got to maintain that momentum. And the plus is, from a marketing standpoint as well, that's definitely putting you out there with that consistency. People can say, well, look at what this guy's doing now.
For sure. But there is a slippery slope and a double-edged sword to what I'm doing. For instance, I had some health issues in 2013, which is why Lumbar was created in the first place. Maybe we can delve in later. But since then, I started creating more and doing more and being more physical and dedicating my creative time to much more of an output, because I was then faced at my own mortality, my time on Earth, and lack of my health situation, which we'll get to too. I really started thinking I have to do as much as I can while I have time, if not for the rest of the world, for me to just create. As you know better than most now, and particularly because of COVID, so many artists, both visual and sonic, have really had such an output since COVID.
Yeah.
Because we finally were forced to do more on our own and be more creative, spend more time doing things. But that has opened so many doors and so many cool projects. It's a wonderful thing. However, for me, it was, I go to work and I make work. And that's been my life since 2013, whether it's art directing stuff or doing sonic stuff, or cardio as well. Like, I'm an avid cyclist and runner. So those things, for me, having numbers crunched and or projects finished and or song lyrics and or subjects covered, those are all, it's all very important for me to have output.
So the flip side then of this, of being that busy, I think you know where I'm going with this. How do you avoid burnout? Because I'd imagine that could come.
I have no burnout.
Whoa.
I have no burnout. My friends and family don't understand it. I guess I don't either. I can't sit still. I'm not a reader because I can't sit in one place and focus on words. That's how I go to sleep every night, is like crack a book, you know. For me, my free time is creative time always, unless watching a film. If I'm watching a film, I suppose that's my relaxed chill time.
Yeah.
As my fiance could tell you, or my family or friends, I don't sit still. The double-edged sword of this is that, and Mike Scheidt, who did Lumbar with me in 2013, when I told him I was going to start doing solo work under a similar name, he said to me, and it stuck with me, and it has proved correct, Mike said, Aaron, just be careful not to suffocate the audience with too much.
Good point. Yeah, oversaturation.
And I have done that 1000%. And the way to see that instantly for some of your viewers or other people curious about this, if you go back in time and look at the first Lumbar Endeavor release, that was August 31st of 2022, a whole bunch of people, this is just Bandcamp exclusively, a whole bunch of people bought it and got into it. Every month after and every release, there's less. Twofold. One, I have a particular sound. Maybe not everyone's into it. Two, my output is ridiculous and silly. Three, now everything is streaming elsewhere as well. So less people are buying Bandcamp records, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of music for us to listen to. Yeah. And as an avid listener from other streaming sources myself too, I understand. But once I at first when I started this, everything was only on Bandcamp. Now it's everywhere, and so people can stream with it wherever they like, which I think is wonderful. Also, it has $5 or $10 to buy every new release that comes out. But to your point, I may have saturated, and I may have removed oxygen from the air.
Well, I can relate somewhat because I've thought about this myself sometimes because I'm usually on here every day and I'm thinking, am I pumping out too many interviews? I understand not everybody will be into every genre or every band and artist. That's fine. They don't have to like every show we do or watch every one. Each has got their own preference. And then I'm like, well, with scheduling, if someone's only got this time free and that day, you've got to do it. So I'm like, I've got to go ahead and try. And in 2024, I'm going to try and find a balanced schedule, official scheduled days. But if somebody, say, only has a Wednesday free, for example, I don't know, 5 Eastern or something, well, I'll do that show with them, even if it's not an official interview day, because, well, that's the only time they got free. And I know people just have to understand that, hopefully. I'll say it like this. It's better than me not hardly doing any shows. So,
well, yeah. And something that we haven't discussed yet today, which is historical. We are creating a library of interesting things for a small group of people on the planet.
Yeah.
Less than 0.0001% will give a damn about anything you and I do.
Yeah.
But in 20 years, someone can listen to a song I wrote with multiple bands. Someone can Google and find an episode that you have done, even though they may not be watching all of your issues chronologically or weighing in on an exact time. They will find one of many things that you have presented to the world, find an interest and watch it and love it and be so stoked. Or if they listen to something I do or they see something that you do and they don't like it, but it's a jump off point for them to do something that they do like. That's incredible. We are archiving our lives.
It is. It's preserving the music.
That's right.
Contributing to history, I feel.
Well, you are. Sorry to cut you off. But,
sorry.
You are providing such a valuable resource for musicians like myself.
Thank you.
Who go under the radar.
Yeah.
The fact that you have an interest makes me happy, but also 3 people will be turned on to what I do because of your show. I don't mean 3 because only 3 are watching.
No, I know what you mean.
3 will just know what I'm doing, like finally. And I'm just myself, other artists you work with, other filmmakers and people into martial arts, everyone around, everyone in your, what do we call that? Universe around you is their art, their craft is presented because you are an archivist helping them, and invaluable. So
yeah, thank you.
The world thanks you. Okay. Okay, see you later.
Yeah, I've always had that mindset. I've always preferred, look, I like a lot of music, but I always prefer things that are under the radar, like you've said, outside the box. Well, there's an underground in absolutely every art medium, from film to music, everything, poetry, whatever it is. And I've always been like that. So it's that passion. When I used to do the radio shows, it was featuring bands that very unknown, not always playing the top tier bands from that genre, that scene, which there's nothing wrong with that, not saying there's any good, but a lot of people do that. So I thought, let's focus on more the mid to the DIY roots. And that's how I've always been. Just before we start chatting about the history of, Lumbar, I want to ask you why it started, then the name change. When you mentioned that you go running and cycling, I just wondered here, and this is a curious question because I go running myself. I find when I've been running creatively, it's like it's kind of like cleaning your mind, and then I get ideas, and I can sit down and I can actually write about something. So I just wondered if it was the same for you.
For sure. And I also think that my neurologist made a good point to me that when we are running, and let's say we're trail running and we're navigating a literal slippery slope, our brain is putting together cogs and puzzles constantly. What that is doing for you and I and millions on the planet is connecting neurons and firing new ideas and inspiring us. At the same time, we are trying to keep ourselves out of danger. I've fallen while on, I've had serious bike crashes as well as running problems or like slipping. But all of these things, navigating life is navigating a trail run, slippery. Like I've done some running in snow with like crampons, and it's terrifying.
Snow is hard to run in.
It really is. Yeah. It's a whole nother art. However, as you brought up, and I think it's important and interesting that you did, is that all of these things we do in life, and other viewers that you have watching this, they have their own thing they're doing that their neurons are firing that gets them stoked for being creative. To answer the question, yes, running and riding, particularly riding, because I don't use headphones when I'm riding, so my mind is thinking more. Whereas when I trail run, I usually put on an audiobook, because as soon as I'm done running, I'm excited to run again because I want to know what happens.
Yeah.
I need to get back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as a person, as I say, I'm not a reader per se. I'm a listener, and so that helps a lot too. But yeah, I think it's all connected.
Yeah, same. I always have that with running, definitely. So, when we were talking on fair, I mentioned how I discovered Lumbar, when you originally called Lumbar, which, funnily enough, was through the punk scene at the time, folks. So I just wondered if you could tell us a bit about why you started the Lumbar before we get to the name change.
For sure. Folks can do a Google search on Lumbar 2013 Southern Lord, and they'll come up with some really cool interviews that were done back in the day. So I'll keep it a little shorter and more to the point. But in 2013, March 6th, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And at the time, of course, it was the end of my life. You know what I mean? Now, looking back, I am so privileged and lucky that my symptoms are manageable, where we all know someone around us that's suffering, if not ourselves, from something. The one thing about having MS that's particularly difficult for me is that people can't see that I'm in pain. They see me creating music, they see me running and riding, having a job, all of these things, and they're not sure what's going on inside with me. But my pain, my best way to describe it is my hands feel as if someone rolled a truck over on my hands and parked it all the time, 24/7, since the very end of 2012. So I had just moved back to Portland from LA, where I was art directing Southern Lord for 2 years. Moved back to Portland, Oregon, because I needed to find out what was going on with my health. I didn't have a diagnosis yet. Got my diagnosis, reached out to Mike Scheidt of Yob, and who I was a friend, and I had done 3 Yob covers for their band as well, their layouts. I reached out to him and said, I don't know if I can keep creating music. My hands hurt so bad. And he said, you got to do something, even if it's keyboard, something, anything. And I said, okay. I wrote some riffs. I grabbed some drums from an old record that I played drums on many years ago, cut and paste the drums, wrote new riffs over them, gave them to Mike and said, what do you think? Is this worth doing? He's like, it is. I think this is cool. Yeah, it's a cool project. And I said, would you sing on it? And he said, I would love to sing on it. You write the lyrics, though. It's got to be about your situation. I said, great. We then involved Tad, as in Tad from the Sub Pop lore. He's a friend of ours, too. I used to play drums in his band, Brothers of the Sonic Cloth.
Nice.
So we hit up Tad and said, Tad, you have a home studio, and your vocals are amazing. You're also one of our good buds. Can we do the vocals at your studio? All the music's done in my own studio in Portland. We trekked up to Seattle, had an amazing weekend with Tad and his wife, Peg. Saw a couple other friends while there. Did all the vocals for a 25-minute record there. Tearing while screaming, all of us. Wonderful times with friends, and an incredible release. Southern Lord put it out. First pressing was gone before release day. Second pressing was gone before record store day.
Wow.
Then it was gone for 5 years. Then Argonaut puts out the second pressing many years later, only a couple years ago. And some new fans who had never known what it was. This is trailing on.
It's all right.
So then because Mike and Tad had become very busy with their own lives and their own bands, I reached out to them and said, do y'all mind if I continue this, but with a slightly different moniker, and keep doing it solo? And they were both excited for me to move forward on my own with this. So the name changed to the Lumbar Endeavor, which is what the Facebook and Bandcamp had always been called anyway.
Right.
And then it was just me. So during lockdown and pandemic times, I did a whole bunch of music projects. Bible Black Tyrant with Tyler from Eagle Twin, a couple records, 49 Helvetica records, which is me recording some heavy music and non-heavy music at half pace. Like, imagine Bjork songs, half pace, Sludge.
Ooh.
49 releases over the time of the pandemic. And then the Lumbar Endeavor was like, all right, now I have this craft. I'm pretty good at programming drums. Let me bring back some of these vibes of lumbar, which the reason of the name was a spinal tap was what gave me my diagnosis. So it was time to like reopen this chapter and add a whole bunch of words. And so I've been releasing since August 2022 a record on the 31st or last day of every month. And I still have at least 10 releases.
Wow. That is, well,
that's
that is, yeah. There's so many things to unpack there.
Right.
But that's great. Incredibly inspiring. A testament to the human spirit. Hopefully, if there's other people who watch this, whether it's, later when I put it up or months, whenever, and if they're going through something similar, that, hey, you can still create and be active, whatever it is you want to do. That's honestly, that's such a, and I can hear the passion in your voice as well. Go on, Aaron.
Yeah, you touched on something important, which is for others to find the thing that they can do anything they want.
Yeah,
I think it should be rephrased as we can all still do something somehow.
Yeah.
For instance, I can no longer play drums. My hands can't hold the sticks, and the percussion hurts me. So all my drums are programmed. I mean, they're all done one button at a time. Like, for instance, I will do a snare through a whole song, and then I'll go back and do the kick drum the whole song. So I'm still playing them, and they're not, there's no AI used in order to create them, but it's fingers as opposed to like full body, as you can imagine. So not being able to play drums crushed me, but anyone who comes up with the diagnosis of a debilitating disease, or they divorce, or they lose a job, or they lose family members, all of these things in life, it may be possible for most of us to still do something creative. It's just we change our delivery, we change our voice, and we change our method.
Yeah, and it's, you know, to put it across as well in a martial arts sense, it's adapting different styles and incorporating. There's always a way around it to use something to get past that. Right. Always another way, always. So,
well, and I would imagine that some folks are much better at delivering a kick than they are a punch.
They are. You get natural kickers, yeah.
Sure, or some are better with cardio, so they have they're lighter on their feet per se, and some have to focus on, like, I got about 5 good hits, I got to make them count.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's how it is. Some are naturally better grapplers, or have got more of a technical mind. Some would be better kickers, better strikers, or better strikers in the art of grapplers, as you said, better with cardio. Just same in music, how, you know, when some people can play obviously more than one instrument, but there will be one or two which is the preference, and they're better at those than the other ones. There was a guy I had on from New Zealand yesterday, a death metal band called Imperial Slave, and he was telling me he used to be a drummer as well, and he had to stop playing drums. He got a real nasty shoulder injury, so he became a death metal vocalist for the band he's in now. And honestly, if you heard them, you'd think this guy's been doing death metal vocals all his life. I'm like, considering he's only been doing it a few years, I'm like, man, this is absolutely amazing. And this is a band out in New Zealand, who I'm hoping get more known and really get out there.
Well, that's another twofold. One, all of us are so thankful and appreciative for you helping push us out there. And two, when we come up with a locked door, we go around it, or we find another door, or we back that door in. And you know, this particular drummer finding a new voice, it's incredible. It's amazing what the human, you mentioned the word spirit, and I think that's important. It's amazing what the human spirit can do after we get over the initial hump of whatever the roughest thing. For instance, you had mentioned a particular family situation earlier before we went live, and you had to change how you walk through life after that. And that's important for our survival.
Yeah, and it's not easy, as you'll know, so much more than me. I am still dealing with that, what we were talking about. There's good and bad days, but I am striving to find that that positive route to something, rather than stay, I guess, at the crossroads thinking, where do I go now? What am I going to do? So you also, you know, we've talked about the name change as well. And just before we get into the current artwork, and then we'll go through the songs and obviously the music and some of your other bands as well, just wondered what, and I have to put the disclaimer out here, folks, because with me being from this part of the world, what I'm about to say is, you know, well-known slang expression in the UK and Ireland and Australia. So Mike Shite from Yob, not cursing YouTube, honestly. What does he think of the current project? Does he think, man, this is really good stuff and it's come a long way from where it was?
He's given me some wonderful feedback, and the wonderful thing about, well, there's many nice things about Mike, but one of the nicest things about Mike is I can text him and ask, and I'm not even one of his closest friends, mind you, but I can text him and say, I got this question, or I'm feeling this way, or this happened to me, or what do you think about this? And he'll take the day or two to consider his response. Sometimes he's quick, but
Yeah.
he's a busy guy. But when he gets back to me, he is so thoughtful with his answers, his replies, his advice, because I've asked for his advice many times, and also his honesty.
Yeah.
Mike Scheidt has he's renowned for his tact, not only with his song, his structure, and his lyrics, because he's the front person for that band and other bands, but he is also sensitive to his audience, whether that's one person or 30,000. And so he has said he's stoked that I'm doing this. Again, he did bring up early on, you might not commit to a record every month. And he was so smart to suggest that. I just couldn't stop writing or releasing, nor could I schedule them for later. But he's been very supportive. He's pushed some of the records. I did cover a Yob song, which was completely ridiculous for me to do, because I am not I'm a bar chord player. I am not a full chord and shredder or noodler. I call myself a guy who does sensible leads, not solos. So to cover something like Yob or other, like I've done some Rush covers, things like that, have really tested my limits. And he pushed the Yob cover I did. He said something about like me making it heavier than the original or something so kind.
Wow.
Now, granted, it was an old song, very old for Yob's long existence, but Mike has been very supportive, and I value his opinion and his advice.
It sounds like he's still a very humble person, approachable, and does, I think, feedback and criticism in the correct way, constructive, not belittling someone as saying, right, it's garbage. So that's
Never.
really refreshing to hear.
And I've seen him with fans come up who are just starstruck.
Yeah.
And he has such tact and respect for everyone who finds a place in their heart for what he does, his delivery, his message, his music, the rest of the band, all of the. He just is a remarkable human, and I'm very glad to have met him so many years ago. My band opened for his band,
Nice.
in the early 2000s in his hometown at a place called the Samurai Duck, which is a very small bar.
Love the name already.
Yeah, Samurai Duck. And this was probably, I don't know, 2002 or 3, and met him, the drummer at the time, the bass player at the time, Travis Enisamu, and I was very, very lucky to open for him many times in my bands while he was still in the same band. Over the years, again, I was able to design for him, but it's rare to be able to have a connection with someone who you admire, who you look up to as a big brother, and actually have them give you the respect of replies in a timely manner, because he's very busy, and a lot of people are busy, and it's just nice to have somebody on what I would consider a rock star level. I don't mean in his mind. I mean on the platform people have put him on too.
Yeah.
It's just so incredible. He is one of the reasons why, and one of the largest reasons why Lumbar was on anyone's radar. People were curious, what is Mike from Yob and Tad from Tad doing with this guy we've never heard of named Aaron? And they checked it out. And being on Southern Lord, Greg pushing it was fantastic too. Of course, having the original artwork from Daniel is amazing too. So many wonderful people pushing my little tiny life It's amazing. Again, people like you pushing my little tiny life and sharing it. It's really incredible, and I'm very thankful and lucky.
Yeah, it's very humbling, and that's I think that is such a good example of people who have got to that level on that plateau, but have remembered where they came from, still treat people with respect, because we often hear, and sometimes we encounter these individuals, you probably have, I have, where they sadly the fame has overtaken them, and it's a horrible experience when that happens as well. You're thinking, man. So this is something really positive. Again, it's inspiring, and it's a real. I feel it's a real symbiotic relationship, all of this, because we're making connections. It's after I've talked to you, there could be a band, something. Oh, I want to get on something to chat about. I'm doing. I'll just talk to Gaz from blah blah blah. The same. I know for me, I might be hey, someone might say I'm looking to put on a band on this tour, or whatever. So, Aaron from he plays that style. Get in touch with them. So it's that positivity, and it's the same for me as well in this sense, because the channel is very small at the moment. Make no illusions of that. But I'm grinding. The downside is not getting to do the social media so much because I'm on here pretty much all the time. But I want to keep that consistency, keep going, keep it out there, not worry about the other side too much. So people like you who want to be here, that are actually want to talk about their music, their art, why they're doing it, why they create it, everything like that. It's just as humbling for me that someone is going to give me their time to talk about what they do. So it's definitely, as the cliche expression says, but it's true. It's a two-way street, and it really is.
Yeah, it's very symbiotic. It's fantastic. Yeah. And imagine had we done this in the, let's say, 80s when I started playing music. I remember sending postcards to houses across the country who put on shows sometimes and try and set up tours with a postcard. I remember having what we called a phone dialer. It's a little device you would hold up to a payphone, and you would push a number on the actual device, and it would make the sound of the numbers. So you didn't have to remember the numbers. Let's say you wanted to call your grandmother, and you didn't remember her number in the piece. You held the thing up, and it would put in the number, and then the operator would say, "Please deposit $4." We found a way to change the crystal code to be the sound of quarters going in.
So, nice hack.
Nice hack. So we were planning our tours that way.
Yeah.
What this is to say is, look what we're doing now. We are communicating 4,000 miles from each other on a device, separate time zones, with crystal clear sound and vision, talking about bands we both have heard of. Yeah. It's incredible. I'm amazed at how, or even the fact that I can create music on a laptop at home without being a drummer anymore. It's amazing.
It's so exciting. Like I said yesterday, talking to Sam from Imperial Slave in New Zealand, 13 hours ahead of me, but we still did the show. Next week, Gaia Games coming on from Australia, from Melbourne, to talk about their Ninja tabletop game. It's absolutely fascinating, and it never gets old for me. It doesn't. I actually, if there's a day when I haven't got a guest on, and I know I'm trying to be sensible sometimes and think, well, you do other stuff as well. So the music, you still need your own time as well. But it's hard, man, because it's like, I'm used to talking to somebody, say, today.
And, well, and though it is technically a job for you, it is a second job, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's also such a passion. It's remarkable to have discussions with strangers and connect. For instance, I just moved into a new house in Portland, Oregon. I walked across the street when I saw that my neighbor was outside. I walked up and he took a step back. And I'm a heavily tattooed man with some weird hair. I get it. But this is Portland, Oregon. We all look like this.
Yeah, too. There's a lot of so many crust punks there as well.
That's right. So he takes a couple steps back. I realize this. I'm aware of it, and I say, I just wanted to say hi. I'm Aaron. I moved in across the street. And he's like,
Yeah.
You're Aaron. He's going over it. You moved in across the street. And I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to say hello. And he's like, hello. We meet strangers and we connect in different ways. And the current tools, trade, instruments, technology that we have makes all of this even more possible. We don't have to send postcards. Bless them. They're cool. We don't have to use phone dialers, which of course the phone company found out about. But the technology is so interesting. For instance, I was able to record Sleep's Dope Smoker on my own time, send it to two friends, George and Aaron, and have them do guitar solos, violin, and vocals without any of us being in the same studio, even though we would have rather. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Crazy. Technology is wonderful. I have friends that have worse health than myself. They're able to ride e-bikes. It's great.
Yeah.
Like this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the positive, and that's what I'm. That's what is good about our conversation. We're highlighting a lot of the positive examples because often what comes up, and I've mentioned it myself on a lot of past episodes, is the negative side with social media and the harmful effects I feel it's having on society. That would be a whole other show in itself. So it's nice we're discussing the positive side of it, and I feel that the positive as well, to go along with what you're saying, is it's presenting I think it's breaking down barriers because it's presenting that human element to people, seeing what we have in common. I remember this is way back, and this was when me and Ross, who hosts Planet X Films, we used to do shoutcast radio streams together as well, doing this kind of thing the same. And we were talking to this underground hip hop cat from, it was on the East Coast, but it was a really rough area where he lived. And he talked very street. And I'm putting this as nicely as I can. And the funny thing was, at that time, I come out with one of the most nerdiest questions as always. After he told all his music, I just said it random. Dude, do you like Star Wars? And Ross started laughing when only Gaz would ask this guy in a real rough bad area. And it was a big dude as well. And he turned around and said, yes, I love it. And he started talking to me about all the movies, people who'd been to, they'd had like cosplay, birthday parties and everything. Now, first glance, if people saw the picture movie, would never put that together. So it just shows you never know. You never know. And it's amazing what we can have in common as well, even us with martial arts. But I'll save that for a little later.
We definitely need to talk about ninjutsu because I have a very funny story. So
we will.
Yeah.
And we will. I just want to get the word out about the current album. So I started with artwork earlier, and I feel it's important to revisit that for Vampyre. What I love about this, Aaron, is on the cover, you've got a Nosferatu there. I feel it's a real homage to those classic movies. You see the silent horror movies there, Nosferatu itself, the Hammer horror as well. There's a very subtle colouring on his eye, the orange, which is good. The moon with the clouds at the background, then Vampyre in the orange lettering, and the way the font has been used as well for the actual lettering is, again, from that historical era of horror. So as someone who is a colossal nerd, I saw that, I was like, yeah, I'll lap this up all day. So
well, and viewers won't be able to see this yet, but you are speaking to the Old English text that's on it.
Yeah,
the online version is just the artist's art. There are no letters. Only the CD version on Electric Talon will have what you are describing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so viewers will, online viewers only, will never see the Old English you're talking about. However, the CD that comes out on the 21st, winter solstice, December 21st, on Electric Talon, that will have that on there. And really the only reason that I put text on this cover, because normally I don't, because the artist's work is so powerful, is because not enough people know what the Lumbar Endeavor is. So it's important to have some text. But the orange color. So the reason that Lumbar, the original release in 2013, as well as every Lumbar Endeavor record, has orange is because that Pantone color 158C is the color used by the MS Society.
Right.
So it's a way to tie it in for people who know, right? So the artist has to use black, white, gray, and orange on every single one of my covers, except the Sleep Dope Smoker cover. We did traditional green, of course, because it's marijuana, which was released on 420, of course, and covered by a sober person, of course. But one of the coolest things about the Vampyre cover to me of the artwork is that you don't see fangs.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's because you have pointy ear and you know the name of the record and the moon, to your point, you instantly get it. Plus, to your point, the style, it's a throwback. All I said to the artist was, this is the name of the record, go. And this is what I got. And I was so happy. I would have been happy with a ferocious fanged demon as well. But this really, with this subtleness,
It's just about to say that. Yeah.
Is so interesting, in my opinion, to what is delivered on the record, which is chaos and despair and multi layers of sound, which makes me that more excited about this. Because if you pick this up, if you see this cover, this could be the new goth band that you might be checking out. It could even be classical music per se. I like that about the cover.
Yeah, I do. It's subtle because the fangs aren't shown. It has that mystery element as well, which a lot of the old school movies definitely showed. And we talked a little bit about this off air as well. And I honestly, folks, when you listen to the album, which I hope you do, when you listen to Vampyre, and the way I was describing it to Aaron off air was, it was like someone had took that gothic vibe and that darkness from death rock and goth rock and melded that with sludge. The filthy nastiness is still there, folks, with the vocals and the music. It's definitely crushing, but it has, I feel, goth overtones as well, which in my limited experience with doom, stoner rock and sludge, I haven't come across really before that I know of. If anyone does know anything out there, then please let us know. That would be great. So I thought that was interesting because it matches the overall tone of the album. I mean, we'll go through the tracks, but there's definitely that horror vibe and see nods to vampires. I mean, the title of the first song, This Dark Hour, I Devour. So, I mean, that's great. It's a great way to start. That gives me the sense something's coming here. What's going to devour then?
Right.
Music. Yeah.
Well, and probably like many of your listeners and folks that you have hosted on your show, you don't always know what the title track's going to be. You also don't know the order until the whole record's done. And this record is clearly dark. There's a lot of anguish, pain, self-introspection. There's also a lot of my life changed recently, and so this record became a way to share this that is different from the other Lumbar Endeavor records per se. So I always share the lyrics for this particular project. And it's important, I think, to do so. It's not a record you sing along to, nor is this style, right? Not usually. Whereas some of my other projects, like Genuine, is more of a hardcore project. There's sing-alongs. There's like, you can imagine kids diving on each other and fingers and grabbing mics. this is more of like a sit down and prepare yourself for a way to learn of someone else's anguish and tie it into yourself. Again, a way of this particular format reaching other people and them understanding and feeling like they are not alone in these feelings. But the reason Vampyre happened, it was written in October because that's spooky and fun.
Yeah.
But I started a job as an overnight freight clerk at a grocery store, at a health food store. I see 1 hour of daylight every day. This is the most daylight I've seen because I had to wake up early in order to do the show with you. Not had to, I get to do this.
Sorry about that.
No, it's wonderful because I actually get some light. But normally I work 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'm home by like 6:30. The sun is going down. I see 1 hour and then I go to bed. When I wake up at 3:30 p.m. I do a video with my fiance who is in London, York time, and the light is gone. And then I stay up until 10 and go to work again. I have become this night creature, and I have always been a late to bed person.
Me too.
I'm a 2 a.m. type.
Yeah, same.
I'm a 6:30 a.m. type, and that's a different kind of type. I don't see other people. I don't see friends. I see a couple coworkers, and we don't even work together once we're there. We all handle different aisles where we're putting away groceries. I have become so solitary that I have really been able to focus on internal heavy stuff, which is heavy for me. Some other person might read this and say, this is classic metal. This is like what we complain about stuff. We cry about stuff. We blame other people for stuff. We blame ourselves for stuff. We live with regret. We live with a little bit of hope. The hope is dashed on the rocks. All of these things you and I have seen in music before we were born. But this is just my personal slice of that.
But I would say in response to that, at the moment, I feel this is refreshing because a lot of people in metal and extreme metal are doing this. Okay, for example, very early on, about episode 2, I had a German band, Death Head, on, and their album cover, it was literally, I think the name of the album was it Hellgate, and there was a cover, the cover had a gate to hell. So on first glance, you would think, this is going to be the usual demons and all of that in death metal. Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was all about a gateway into a post-apocalyptic world that had been overridden by a virus, which was all inspired by COVID, about this new reality. So, and I've noticed a lot of the bands who've been on the show, they are using a lot of these human experiences and human element for dark, heavy music. And a lot of them have said to me, it's to do something different from the usual angels and demons. And I'm not saying I don't like any of those bands that make that music.
Sure.
It's real good, heavy stuff. But it is nice that bands are now, they are going to do other things. For example, going on the nerd side, I had a fantastic slam band on, Brutal Death slam band, Cryptic's Mortality. Really good guys. Not too far away from you, I believe. I'll forget where, but I think they're on the West Coast. I think. Sorry, Brian, if I've got that wrong. And then they did their latest release, which is just dropped. It was all sci-fi, I guess, cosmic horror, aliens come in doing nasty things. And he said they like to do different themes on each album. And I said it keeps it interesting, and it's nice to make heavy, dark music that isn't always the standard preset, I guess, that people are expecting, right? It's got to be this. It doesn't. It can still be heavy. This is a perfect little reference. We can get into this a little bit later, but that other project you have, and you were talking about, which is kind of like, dark Western music, I guess. Dark, death folk. That was it, death folk. Yeah. Okay, that can be still, it can be melodic. People might hear that and think, well, this isn't heavy, but it can still have the atmosphere, the darkness, the sinister overtones there. So it's a different kind of alternative music that's like an offshoot of these scenes. It's all interrelated.
For sure. Yeah.
And I like that expression.
Yeah. All of these artists, bands, we are all throwing a paper airplane out our window.
Yeah.
And you don't know who's going to get the paper airplane. And when they get it, they're going to unfold it, and then they get the message. And the message could be, to your point, a romance novel, which there is a lot of romance novel in my work, because my fiance is 4,000 miles away and we haven't figured out a way to live together. There's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of hurt there. There's a lot. Everyone has their own paper airplane, and sometimes many, like myself. And I find that that's sort of the music is the paper. You know what I mean?
Sorry, do you feel at times as well it can be the language of the soul for what we're feeling, what we want to express?
It's so important for everyone to have these releases, whether it is a pop love song that, to be fair, for me, like case in point, I worked on some merch for a pop star that I had never heard of. I had to Google them, and then I found out that it was one of the most iconic and important people on the planet. And then I started listening to their stuff, and it didn't jive with me, but I value where they're coming from. I value their craft. I value the time they put into things, the research they did, the delivery, the tones, the mix. So important. Just as important as like the thinnest black metal mix ever, where there isn't even bass.
Yeah, ultra lo-fi.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it has its place. Everything has its place.
Agreed.
And I think it's so important that we all are so, many of us are blessed. I think we should take that word back, blessed, and use it appropriately, not by normal standards.
Yeah.
If we are blessed with a way to share a message and we can do it, it's so fantastic that we do. Yeah. And this one is about darkness, being alone, how to move on, change. Like the voice is that this person is coming to realize their whole life has changed because of this new blood that courses through their veins, and why them, and why did it happen to them, and why me, and is this my fate? Can I change it? So many things covered in the lyrics, and I know that not everybody will sit in front of Bandcamp and read along, but I really hope they do. And I hope that other artists, when I listen to their music, I read along too. Just like when I was a kid and I got the new Instead record from, ordering in Maximum Rock and Roll, and it shows up, and my friends and I would all sit on the floor, put on a record, and read the lyrics together. And it was amazing and so important. So I hope that people don't just listen to the heavy music. I hope that if they're interested in what I have to say, and they don't have to be, they read along, because there's more than just the scalding heaviness. There's poetry and thought.
There's a lot to it under the surface. So you talked about the themes there with the music. So did the title Vampyre, I know it's as you were saying, the old way of saying vampire, did you just feel that represented very accurately your lifestyle at the moment, your working situation? Thought, so this is the perfect name for an album like this?
Perfect for the time and place. Perfect because I'm alone. Perfect is the word. Appropriate because of my job. Appropriate because I'm alone. Appropriate also because the old school spelling of vampire as vampire. I turned 50 this year, and so I'm sort of touching on this, man, this is the second half of my life now, and probably past the second half of my life. I've entered into it. You know, that there are things that we in America we do when we're 50. We get our colon checked out when we're 50, and you know, we start considering a little bit more safe lifestyle. Weird thoughts for me as a person who lives day to day without savings, not knowing what tomorrow's like. Will I live in the UK? Will I live here? Will my family live with me here? Will I work overnight forever?
Yeah.
Will this project stop? I don't know. Like, when will I run out of a voice? So many uncertain things that this record, and to be fair, the others as well, they are all over the place with lyrical content, and I never know what I'm going to write until I hear the song and I write each lyric in a row.
Wow.
I never write down ever a whole song. It's a poem, and it, just like I write the songs too. I write a riff, then I write another riff, then I write another riff, and I don't practice a song. I write and record everything on the spot. I'll bring back another part later for sure, but I never know. I don't sit on my couch or on my porch and actually write a song like most folks I would imagine do.
Yeah.
My memory isn't good enough to write a whole bunch of songs and then go to the studio and record them. I'm not able.
It just naturally comes from somewhere.
Yeah, it has to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Which is I've had some close friends say, hey man, you need more choruses because you're missing out on like these really cool hooks that should come back. So this record and Waves of Heat, as well as the next several, actually I'm trying to take some advice from friends and bring some hooks back. Notoriously, I would introduce a riff, get myself or maybe someone else stoked on it, and then never play it again. And maybe that's not the way to do things. Sometimes it's cool, but
yeah, it's it's an undertaking for sure, and something I think is as easy as people may think. Is like, oh yeah, I'll just put these songs together. This one's heavy. This works. No, it's not. So, so which particular songs do you feel are, well, personally, and it's not to disparage any of the songs on the album, but which ones particularly, loaded question here, which ones particularly mean something that are very important to you? And then secondly, were there any that were difficult to write? And third, I'll make it a triple shot, what would be some of your favorites from the album?
Oh man,
Just put you right on the spot.
Yeah. Because I have so much material constantly being written and released, and as I say, there's maybe even 10 more records, covers and originals. I finish a record, I put it away like finishing a novel, and I start a new novel.
Yeah.
So for me to go back and tell you now, and I'm looking at the Bandcamp on my end, the unreleased record right now, and I'm looking through lyrics, I'm looking at the songs. It is difficult, and it's also because of my MS mind. It is difficult right now for me to remember which song sounds like what.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Even though I wrote them and recorded everything myself, I should have the closest connection to these. But I have some, fans is the wrong word, I have some supporting friends out there in the world who have found more of a connection with these songs perhaps than I have, only because of my content, my amount. However, I will say that for this record, there are 4 cover songs which I thought were really cool because There's 2 on the CD that comes out on Electric Talon. And those 2 will also be on my Bandcamp and the labels. But then on my Bandcamp, there's also 2 extra songs. So there is a Clutch cover. There is a Ink and Dagger cover, which for those who don't know, was a vampire-themed hardcore band in Philadelphia around 2004, 5, 6, and then a little bit on. For perspective, I was living in Philadelphia at the time. We heard that these members of had a new band, and they were going to play it at their house. 200 people tried to get into the house. Obviously couldn't. But the place is packed. Ink and Dagger, the band, they're all upstairs putting makeup on. And this is before a lot of us were familiar with corpse paint. So this was for us a joke. They had one of their friends set up and go through a line check on all of their equipment for them in a house. There was goth, like organ playing, low light. We were all starting to get bored and kind of mad. This is ridiculous. They come down the stairs. We're all laughing at them. They're all wearing white T-shirts. Nobody did that. They all have black and white on their faces. They make their way to their not even a stage, to the living room. We're all heckling them. We all know them very well. We're yelling at them. We're laughing. They blew our minds off, and nobody could talk about anything else for a year. That band was important to me because they were the first band that took me out of the honest, whatever you're wearing, you play in that because you just walk onto the stage. They put more thought into it, and their delivery was something that I personally at the time was not prepared for. I hadn't been to like really big shows. I didn't know about that stuff. So I did an Ink and Dagger cover because they were a vampire band. I did Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi's Dead, and I did Sting's Moon Over Bourbon Street, also about Interview with the Vampire and Sting's vibe on that. So those two of those songs are only on my Bandcamp. Those covers were fun to do because, and those stand out to me is what I'm saying, because it doesn't come from me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a interesting way to reimagine these really powerful songs that affected me. And those songs, ironically, stand out a little bit more in my memory currently than my own material.
Yeah.
Because I had to really like focus and twist them, and the rest of the stuff that I write comes pretty natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's songs that obviously those, you know, the songs you covered that have meaning to you are important to you as well. So I can appreciate that. There used to be and now I'm thinking of them when you mentioned the hardcore band, and I love hardcore. It got me thinking of a crossover band from here. I think they were from Leeds, and they were called Senmore Paramedics, and they were pretty much just dressed. They were just crossover thrash, yeah, but all dressed as zombies. And I think there was, is it Senmore Paramedics? Yeah, I'm sure there was, funnily enough, and there were crossover as well. I'm sure there was a US band who had a very similar name. I seem to remember Paramedics was in the name, and there were, I'm not saying they intentionally ripped each other off. I think, you know, sometimes you can just get bands playing a very similar style look and they just exist in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was a US crossover band with, I know they had Paramedics in their name as well, with a similar kind of appearance. I always found that funny. I thought it's like almost like the cousins on opposite sides of the pond doing something similar.
Yep.
But yeah,
it's like The Office. You have a version of it. We have a version of it.
And it was like, oh, you've got me thinking as well. I've mentioned this band before, and they haven't been active for a long time, but they were a fantastic DB band, a Swedish black and DB band called Broad Scott 11. And in one of their slower songs, they're all dressed like the corpse paint, the zombies, putting that horror vibe on DB. Really, really raw stuff. Might not be for everyone, but I'm in a sense, well, I can hear in your music as well. You appreciate that style as well. I love my rawness too with grind and hardcore, and obviously Can, Crust.
And
fantastic, man.
That's right. And when a band goes the extra mile, like the Mummies did, or like the Misfits did, or even Bauhaus, to present something beyond just the music, is that next level commitment is a lot. And Ink and Dagger, I did an interview with them in my basement at the time in Philadelphia when they were just getting going. And Sean McCabe, the singer, was like, I said, is this about vampires? Come on, is this going to be Misfits? He's like, we're taking this very seriously. It's about energy and how people suck energy. And I was like,
whoa, now isn't that such an interesting way of doing it?
And Sean McCabe, to anyone who knows him, was the goofiest, and he would heckle everyone from shows. He was hilarious and an amazing person. But he got real serious about this very poetic presentation, and I loved that. He was a thespian now, and that was really cool, really cool. And I think when bands can add more than just the music, and we can't always do that, it's respectable. Like, for instance, when oh my gosh, what's the name of the band? Gwar.
Yeah.
Next level, right?
Yeah.
But then when I was living in Richmond, Virginia, they played a show at their warehouse.
Yeah.
As the Cops. And they dressed as cops, and they played Gwar songs. If I recall, it was just their music in a different and like with no stage. Just whoever can fit in their little. I think that it's important. The presentation is really cool.
And you've got me thinking as well. It's examples. Isn't the guys who are in Municipal Waste? Isn't there other band Cannabis Corpse? Do that take on Cannibal Corpse of Scented Cannabis Corpse?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
And even if you think of as well as we're talking vampires, the first Blade movie, the very first one, time when that dropped, and there's Wesley Snipes is going to this, like, you see him going to that underground rave that all the vampires are in, and obviously the blood opens up like a Gwar show, kind of that feel. But can't even say the word now. Cinematically, that was really well presented, because this is look, these vampires, all the blood's gone on it. This is like their drug at one of these raves. So it's like taking what I guess humans are known for, and I'm putting this politely with this being live. I'll say with them taking alternative substances. I'm not promoting that, folks, but they showed vampires with their version of that. So you're right. If it's presented well and takes it up there, you remember. You're like, look at what this band did, or look at what happened in this movie. It stays with you. It's like, and then you tell your friends, and you go and check it out.
For sure. And we were speaking of Westerns before offline, off there, and then a little bit now. And I think that is what's so impressive about not only, for instance, Nosferatu in the 30s when it came out, but also a lot of the Westerns that are sparse and sometimes with limited dialogue, similarly to the Nosferatu with no sound. I think that the whole idea of vampires, the whole idea of this tortured soul who doesn't necessarily love what they do. Case in point, like Interview with the Vampire. I thought that was such a crazy, awesome movie about
a classic.
One that loves what they do, loves the carnage, and one that struggles with, there's got to be a better way for me to exist without harming. I love that duality of the whole vampire theme. I've also been, we were discussing also, a horror fan my whole life. I've been to horror conventions. I don't dress up. I'm not that guy, and I love that guy. But I go. I'm curious. I'm fascinated. I'm always happy to see a new movie that reminds me, and maybe this record will remind others. Entertainment of someone else's suffering is just that. And we feel better about ourselves sometimes when either their life is worse than ours, we feel better, we have a sigh of relief, or we can commiserate. And I think this record, like a lot of the, I would say, tortured stuff that I'm writing and delivering and sharing, is definitely that. This record is a little bit more on the, every song is a little more dark than my other stuff. Sometimes I try to bring stuff around, bring some hope. This one's pretty dark and to our discussion earlier, alone. Like,
yeah. Well, just to just further the watchers out there, just to emphasize some of the titles now. I said the opener, This Dark Hour I Devour, Blood Runs Pitch, Black as Tar, Time to Feed the Worms. Yeah, I'm going to read the whole album out, folks, but I want you to hear these. Time to Feed the Worms, Wizard of the Sand, Vampyre, the title track, All This Blood, Wellspring. That's an interesting title in itself because that can have a number of interpretations. I feel really good meaning behind that. Nosferatu, my really bad vampire accent. Under My Skin, Mirror of Truth. The Road to Hell, another one. What could be open to a number of interpretations. Might not be what you think, folks. Then Sunrise, Dark Hides. Well, now that you've told us how your life situation is as well with working Sunrise, Dark Hides, that really sticks in my mind even more so now.
Well, and that particular last track, so that's my last original track on the record, and then there's 2 covers after it on Bandcamp, but that's the actual closer of the record on the CD. And the last line is, "Here comes the sun, I'm not ready." And that is to say that whatever current situation that your viewers, you or I or anyone else is living in, we may not have set ourselves up to be in that situation, and we may not be ready to take it on head on. So, like, which locked doors do we try to open, and which do we go around, or which do we bash through? And that's what I wanted to, like, I wanted to leave people with the idea that there is no confidence when you're writing a record or sharing a novel or providing let's say you're doing a martial art, what would you call like a piece, like a sort of like a showing.
You mean, well, if it's in traditional martial arts, I guess it could be, well, depend on any style of demonstration.
Sure.
Right. Showing how a technique works. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Sharing a technique. That when you're sharing a technique or a film that you made or any art or craft, when you deliver it and you watch other people, or when other people are around you checking it out, you are fearful for their reaction, even if you're confident.
Yeah.
And that's where this record ends as far as the original material. Again, there's a couple covers, but it's this uncertainty of what's going to happen. And I am just in a very uncertain place. I can put on a very happy mask of positivity because there's no reason to be a downer when I walk out my door necessarily. But like the cover art that doesn't show the fangs,
it's hidden, isn't it?
Fangs are there, like that's why it's the art speaks to me so much that way. You touched on it. No one knows what they're going to get unless they push play.
Yeah, and it's very powerful, the imagery, and that's a really good analogy as well, because if we look at the mental health situation as well with people, and this is one I've read about people who are in comedy who've been suffering mental health. They can go on stage, they can go in that zone, deliver the act. Everyone thinks because they've been making people laugh, oh yeah, they're absolutely great. But when that ends, it's like they automatically go into that business professional mode, and then they're away from that. They're with themselves again. Terrible and those solitary moments as well. And that's what people, I feel, forget. It's, if someone asks, are you all right? You're not always going to say, well, no, I'm not really, blah, blah, because you don't want to feel like you're a nuisance or depress everybody. So, of course, people can say, oh, yeah, I'm okay. And can be good at as you were saying, put it on their face, laughing and joking, and then when they're alone, go away, then they have those inner demons, whatever they may be, to deal with. So it's a very powerful metaphor. I do just want to get another reminder out, folks. I've just seen some people tune in now. When you do, and I hope you do, listen to the music on Vampyre by the Lumbar Endeavor, think of, and you might think differently to me, folks, but think of, there's a lot of real nasty, filthy sludge, which is really great stuff, mixed with some gothic overtones as well. And I thought that was fantastic, as I mentioned earlier. Just want to give a shout out to Steve Still Kicking Records. Just popped in the chat. Good to see you, man. Thanks for supporting the show as well. It's greatly appreciated. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are, man. Coming back to it a minute, just before we get on, I'm trying to behave myself before mentioning ninjutsu, because I know you've got a funny story to share on that, because I don't want that to overtake the entire show just yet, because that'll be it. And I know what I'm like. You mentioned martial arts, that's it. So, yeah, trying to behave. So some of your other bands, you've got some releases coming out. The first one, I've got to say this, with me being a punk hardcore guy as well, and I love this already, ACDB, and I love DB as well. Can you tell us a bit about that and the name as well? Is it just a play, or not just a cool name put in DB?
For sure. And I should have sent you the ACDB cover record that I did, so that you would have more to talk about. But there's just so many things I'm working on, I couldn't remember what to send and whatnot. Sorry. Basically, I have a bunch of cover records coming out this year under the Lumbar Endeavor handle and name. And I'm just doing quick covers. The artist that normally does my stuff is being saved only for my original stuff. So there's some cover records I'm doing. A Chelsea Wolf cover record. I recently released a Queens of Stone Age cover record. I'm doing ACD Beat, of course. That's this at the end of this month, the 31st. And some others like Perfect Circle and
Hot Water Music.
That's right, Hot Water
as
Music.
Well. Yeah,
Hot Water Music's record Caution from start to finish, but not necessarily the way they do it, but true to their riff. But the ACD Beat record was difficult for me because I don't naturally agree with a lot of the lyrics from 80s music, because they often were a bit sexist, a bit misogynistic. And so with this record, I actually changed a few lyrics very subtly. But instead of how it's some of the lyrics are, hey, you woman, or you woman did this, or you lady, I changed it to you human, you folk, you person, because I couldn't relate to it as much.
Yeah.
I felt like it was it put me a little bit on edge. So I made very small changes. Again, I'm screaming and yelling. Probably no one's going to know. But it was really fun to change these songs. And I'll tell you which ones I did. To change these songs into really different animals. Let's see. I wish I could remember all the songs I did. I apologize. Let's see.
It's all right. It's a bit like my on-air questions sometimes, because I do everything organically. Sometimes they can evaporate halfway through.
Well, right. And again, like I'm handing out so many flat paper airplanes every day. So I did Back in Black, Walk All Over You, Kicked in the Teeth Again, Shoot to Thrill, Highway to Hell, and Hell's Bells. And that's it. And it was and as you can imagine, when you do a cover record, it's hard. And they have so many songs. It's hard to pick 6 that you want to do. But those songs lend themselves to a quicker beat, even though the pace is the same. They lend themselves to a D-beat style.
Yeah.
With their rock and roll, which
definitely.
I really appreciate those riffs.
Yeah.
So good.
Because there's the Power Violence band, isn't there? XDC or something. I think they're from LA.
They're from LA and so good at what they do. And they've been dodging lawsuits like their whole time.
I bet.
Why they did it. Yeah.
That's what it always makes me giggle sometimes with the titles for Power Violence bands, because there was Henry Fonda. That was one as well.
Yep.
I just sit there and laugh. There was Burt
Yeah.
Reynolds, of course. That was another one.
Iron Lung, not necessarily a funny
Yeah.
name, but like,
Yeah.
I love their work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Infest is a band that
Yeah.
introduced me to power violence. And though I would love to cover their stuff, it's very difficult. And as a person who doesn't read music, not that they would have tab out for their songs, but it's very difficult for me to tell what the riffs are.
Yeah.
Because they're so chaotic. But I would love to cover some Infest stuff. I love their stuff.
Yeah, it's it's just the sheer ferocity, and I appreciate it. It's a funny thing in extreme music because we're used to, on the unclean ends, listening to the shouting, the growling, the screaming, and everything. But I've had friends and people I know in the scenes who haven't been able to quite take to power violence for the vocal arrangement. But of course, it led to grind violence, the crossover with grindcore, which is fantastic stuff. Did we mention Genuine as well? One of your other ones?
We may not have to your viewers, but so Genuine is a project I've done by myself since 1997, end of 96. And I did a couple records where I had guest people on it, but in general, it's just been me. Also on Bandcamp, and I'm about to release a record there as well. I released a lot of material in the last couple of years there too. A little bit more on the hardcore side, not as sludgy, a little more like rock, whereas Lumbar Endeavor's in general more chaotic, in general slower when it is slow. But it's still me screaming and yelling, so people will get the vibe. A lot of the same guitar tones, that kind of thing. But a record that I am finished with as of this weekend for Genuine is, imagine if the Postal Service was a hardcore band. So I covered the whole Postal Service record called Give Up in D beat, a little bit of grind,
nice,
hardcore, some like scream along vocal, backup vocals. And it's projects like that are completely ridiculous. And it brings me a little bit out of my very serious Lumbar Endeavor mode and takes me into, I can still have some fun and appreciate this music, make my new visions of it, reimagine some things. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, got to have that fun element as well, and it's a nice break from all the dark themes at times. And bands, when people like that, such as yourselves, make music like that, obviously I love those styles, but it makes me laugh as well. It's giggle. it's just funny. There is one more I wanted, another project that you do, and that was, I think we did touch on it earlier. I know we were talking about it off air, but it was the Dark Folk project.
That's the Man of Multnomah stuff. I live in Multnomah County in Portland, Oregon. And right around 2006, I started delving into what would be my sort of like Steve from Neurosis vibes,
Nice.
Like, take some dark vibes, some dark riffs, and present them with some singing, as well as like a lot more organic instruments. And way back in 2006, I put out like 5 records of me actually singing under the name Helvetica. And I thought it was a great moniker. Over the course of time, Helvetica became something totally different, which is just like covering bands, half pace, blah, blah, blah. Man of Multnomah stayed true to the organic stuff. No vocals, just sometimes sparse, sometimes very thematic, sometimes orchestral where I'm playing cello. My father's banjo, which we touched on a little bit. He gave me his banjo when he couldn't play anymore. And he dared me to write some records with it because he didn't think I could, which was awesome. But the record that stands out for me for that project, that Man of Multnomah project, is the one about the desert, and it is what I would call my sort of soundtrack for a Western movie that doesn't yet exist. And that was my parameters, was, can I write what I would call a sparse Western?
Yeah.
It would be interesting enough, even if there isn't a film. So
Yeah.
that's debatable, because I'm not sure if people dig it or not. But it was really fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we were talking about off air, I've mentioned this on other shows, like Southern Gothic, Dark Country, Death Folk, that Dark Folk. Okay, on first listen, people might think, oh well, this is not what I'm used to listening to. It's not heavy, but it's another alternative way of presenting dark atmospheric themes as well. Like if you think, you were mentioning earlier with the westerns. The earlier ones not having much dialogue, and the camera work then emphasized facial expressions, the tone, the moods to set the scene, the tension. How's he going to draw? Is he going to throw this knife, for example, the knifeman in the movies? All of that kind of thing. First go in the saloon, everyone stops. Well, I could be describing any small town anywhere here, but
That's right.
Everyone just stops like, oh,
Yeah.
Someone from outside the local area. Who is this? But
right.
But so, comedy aside, all about setting the atmosphere and tone, which you obviously do with your I'll say a Western project,
right?
Which anyone who appreciates that, I think they will definitely enjoy it. Speaking of movies, I feel this is important. I did forget to mention this earlier, but on Vampyre, the forthcoming album from the Lumbar Endeavor, you've got samples from the 1979 and 2000 films Nosferatu, The Vampire, and Shadow of the Vampire. All of them great classics, and I did notice those samples when I was listening as well, and they really do match that tone and the atmosphere. To go ultra nerdy, when you were describing your current lifestyle, it could be almost like, I imagine this is kind of what naturally come out when you were writing the lyrics after the crushing riffs, is a vampire literally talking about his current situation. So,
yeah, totally. Yeah. And again, like, writing the record in October, as a horror movie buff, I was watching even more horror movies in October, and then I just thought, I need to do this record. I'm feeling this way, this new job, blah, 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 new life. And while watching these movies for the 1,000th time, I was like, I should be sampling some of these things, where they can go on Bandcamp, but they can't go on, let's say, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple, all these things. So the samples are only on the Bandcamp, which is kind of fun. It's like an additional, whereas all the other streaming services, you have to pay extra in order to use those samples. So I decided not to. Plus, then you get two formats, kind of cool.
Yeah.
But definitely, while watching all these movies, I sampled, I don't know, 100 things, and tried to whittle it down, because I didn't want it to be just another sample record. We've all done it. People will still do it. This is just my version of, like, I like these sprinkled bits of vampire lore and stuff. Yeah. And if I had really wanted to spend more time, and to be fair, I was just finished with the record, I didn't need more on it, there could have been some much better choice samples. And I think some viewers and some listeners will say, like, why didn't he use this? Or why didn't, for instance, I was going to cover the song that Tom Cruise plays on the piano after he comes out of the swamp.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it is a very, very difficult classical piece to play.
Yeah.
He plays it on the piano only, but he's not playing the actual entire piece, and with the pauses and the right breath that piece deserves. I listened to it many times, and I just can't. I'm not the shredder to take it on, but I really wanted to. So there's lots of other stuff that could have happened for that record. But
I'm curious as well, before we go into sharing the ninjutsu story. There's a band, and I think the singer, not the singer, the guitarist is originally from the UK. I think he's from London originally. But I've noticed they've been doing a lot of shows on the West Coast. I can't remember what city they're from. I have a feeling they're actually from Portland. Black Angel goth rock band. Have you come across them?
The Black Angel, you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they called the Black Angels?
No, just Black Angel.
Oh no, not familiar. No.
Oh man, awesome.
Okay.
Particularly, I recommend them to everyone if you like any goth rock, anything like that. Definitely check them out. Particularly a song, very popular one on YouTube, Killer. It's called. Definitely worth checking out. It's got those vibes. I'm sure they've been hitting a lot of shows on the West Coast.
Okay.
But yeah, highly recommended.
The other one I would recommend is an old friend started doing a solo thing called King Dude.
All right, King Dude.
And King Dude is interesting too, because it's a little bit more like if you know how the sarcasm of Johnny Cash comes through, even though he's playing popular sounding music, he's talking about killing people.
Yeah.
King Dude has a very similar kind of vibe of like of sarcasm, and he comes from a black metal band called Book of Black Earth, which was amazing and like kind of running our show in Seattle at the time. But I'm finding so much cool music by springboarding off other people and stuff like Chelsea Wolfe. As soon as I started hearing her stuff, one of my exes turned me on to Chelsea Wolfe. Then I went down a whole spiral of dark new goth, but with like heavy drums. I just we were discussing this. I'm late to most games and most new genres and most new films. I'm late to all these things, and I'm just happy that I find them at all. Cool new genre.
Yeah, Son Somber on Cleopatra Records. They're a good goth rock band as well.
Okay.
Definitely worth checking out. But that's the beauty of having a conversation like this. Everybody can always turn us on to something we haven't heard of. Someone always knows something or some band, you know, that I haven't heard of, whatever.
And I think like to the point of having a lot of your guests too, sometimes you have a guest, for instance, you have somebody from Mastodon on, and my friend Dewey, who runs Pure Pleasure Podcast, he has all kinds of wonderful guests, people I never personally would have thought I would connect with. And then they come on and I'm blown away at how interesting they are, or bands they listen to that I never thought they would have been into. It's so cool. Podcasts and the realm of YouTube videos like yourself. So interesting and wonderful for an old horse like myself to learn new stuff.
Well, thank you, man. As I said earlier, it's putting that human element across to people, showing what we've got in common, getting behind why they're making the art, why they make the music, all of that stuff. Super interesting, man. Speaking of which, been behaving myself for a long time now. We're going to get to it. So ninjutsu, this funny ninjutsu story. Curious what this is. So let's have it, man.
All right. I as anyone who has listened to me talk knows, I'm long-winded, so I'll try and make it short.
It's all right. So am I.
I'll give it some punch. I grew up as a kid in California, right outside of Fresno, in the valley, totally flat desert, pretty much. We had one stoplight in our town, very small. And David Allen was my neighbor. His whole Thai family had 4 sons, all into ninjutsu. David was 4 years my senior in high school. I was younger. I would go over and like he would say, "These are nunchucks. Mess around with them. Don't hurt yourself. Here's a star. Try and throw it into the wood, blah, blah, blah." So I was like, all right, got into it. Everyone on the block got into it. All of us kids, all boys, were just buying everything we could from these martial art magazines to just destroy each other. We hurt each other real bad.
Okay. That South Park episode.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So my mom comes into my room one day and says, "Aaron, I know you don't have a ninjutsu suit. And I know they're very expensive in these ninja magazines. I'm going to make you one." And I was like, "Oh, this is great. This is great. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Because my mom has great attention to detail and she's a seamstress. So I was stoked. I don't know, a week goes by and I can hear her sewing in the room, but I can't check it out yet. She wants me to, it's going to be a surprise. I'm so excited. I've told all my friends. My mom's making me a suit. You guys bought yours. We're all going to be in this together. My mom says, all right, I have it for you. She gives it to me. It's wrapped up because she's that way. I unwrap it. And there's something white, first of all. And I'm like, why would it be white anything? And I unwrap it all. It's only white. The whole ninja suit is white. Everything's white. There's no black anywhere.
The winter version.
And I say, Mom, ninja suits are black so you can hide in the night and sneak up on your friends and hurt them. And she's like, yes, I know, but you're different. You should have the white snow ninja suit. And I was
like, there you go.
Oh, Mom, you screwed this up. You had your chance. You had the spotlight to shine. I was going to be somebody important on the block.
Yeah.
Now I got my ass handed to me every night by all my friends.
Oh,
so that's my ninja story. However, there is a caveat. I still was able to break Jason, my best friend Jason's leg with an actual sword, even in a white suit. He's hanging down from a tree and he has legs hanging. Chopped him. Jason Martinez, broken leg, hospital. Okay, that was the quick version. I did my best.
No, it's fine. I thought that's what I said the winter version coming. No, man. Oh, I can imagine the amount of heat you got wearing that. There is oh man, there was this old school ninja movie I come across about a year or two ago, and I did write a review at the time. Just something random. I thought, all right, I'll do this, and it was called New York Ninja, and it was some ninja movie from the 80s that had recently been re-released. I forget the name of the film company. And spoilers alert here, folks. I may cover it for the channel at some point. There is this scene in it where I'll just say if you like, the villains are apprehended in the later part of the movie. And there's a news reporter covering this. And she turns around the camera and is like, giving her best kind of like thespian line, I guess, during it, just saying, and the assailants were arrested by a group of school children. Like these kids who were about 10 taking on these gangsters. It's so ridiculous, but hilariously entertaining. Everything is so bad, but yet. I love them, but yeah, I find movies like that really, really purposely bad movies that don't take themselves seriously can be so entertaining. It's pure escapism.
Just like the Westerns you were talking about.
Yeah.
You go into, once you're in the space of the genre you're in, it's amazing.
Yeah.
When you're not in the space, like when we talk about, Fistful of Dollars, we're like, it's pretty goofy. It's pretty goofy. But when you're watching it, it's real and it's great.
Yeah.
And you long for those little jokes that happen. I remember in American Ninja 1, 2, and 3 or 4.
Yeah, seen them all.
Completely ridiculous scenes that were amazing as a kid, of course, because they're all cool. I mean, B movies were cool. All that's cool.
The classic first movie, bucket on his head to Steve James, sorry.
Right.
Catching the arrows, and near the end of that movie, is it the kind of the villain who they don't imply is French, but definitely has some kind of French accent, and like, something like, "Who is it? The American Ninja, American."
Yeah.
Bad.
Oh, it's great.
American Ninja 2, which is my favorite out of the series. When I think there's spoiler alert, folks. Nerd tangents. Just deal with it. Part where Michael Dudikoff and Steve James kind of report that is it to the commanding officer of the Marines. And he's in the office. He was called Wild Bill, and he's in charge of the Marines. Right. That's just ridiculous in itself. And it's the way he delivers the famous line in that movie where he says, "This is really beginning to get on my." I'll just do that with my hand across the chest. So fantastically hilarious, the whole part where they're assaulted on the beach as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I love it how they show the ninjas when they're training. But you would think back then, why don't we take some people that actually have done martial arts for maybe more than a week to make it look convincing? Right. They literally can tell they've put anybody in a ninja suit.
And it's got to be tough when you make a very specific genre movie. Do you have the budget to hire someone who knows what they're talking about, or are you just going to the dojo down the block and you're like, you'll do, sure.
But yeah, and if you look at where they've come a long way now, and sadly don't get the same attention, which I'm hopefully going to change. But Scott Adkins, his ninja movies that he did, oh, amazing.
Yeah, Old Boy, things that are like still in a way of the Western and old kung fu movies and stuff, still have their moments of humor, but it's humor because someone lost their tongue. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a different kind of humor. I grew up watching all those movies as you did too, and but probably like Wu-Tang, we watched them like this, you know, like with real enthusiasm and connection.
Yeah, and that's why it's perfect opportunity, folks. Just awesome guests who are due on next week as well to talk about a tabletop ninja game, Ninjas Unleashed Guy Games from Australia. Definitely check them out. But yeah, I'd love martial arts and ninja movies, samurai movies from all eras. Just absolutely obsessed with them. So, and also for like Kurosawa's movies, influence on Star Wars, which, you know, a lot of people forget or maybe don't know. Some amazing filmmaking out there. So I've kept you here for quite a while, gone longer than expected today, which is absolutely no problem, Aaron, because it's been an awesome conversation. So talked about all your music from absolutely everything, which is great. I always like to give guests the opportunity, not just to promote their band and forthcoming album, but anything else. But you've got quite a few other bands, so you've certainly got something to promote for sure. But outside of your music, if there's anything else you would like to promote as well or shout out, then feel free to do so. The floor is yours, so promote away, sir.
Well, I will say first, thank you so much for your interest in me and having your craft and your enthusiasm and your stoke. It is very apparent that you love what you do. There's a reason why you keep doing it every day. And I know that when you are 5 minutes from an interview, I know that you're like, and then 4.5 minutes later, you are just on fire, Stoke. I love your energy. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to my long-windedness. My plugs are twofold. One, that Vampyre is out on the 21st of December. It's winter solstice. It is a very limited CD from Electric Talon. And then my version of it with a couple extra covers will come out at the end of the month. But first it'll come out for Electric Talon. A note for Electric Talon, they also put out the Dope Smoker Sleep cover record that I did as a cassette. Probably none left, but you can check Electric Talon for that. And then lastly, the biggest plug is really to push again CVSPE, the artist that works for me and donates their creativity, their passion, their energy, and they're just stoked despite being their own vampire as well and in their own situation of struggle and pain where they are and their life. I wouldn't be doing this without their energy, without the wonderful stoke and energy of the label of Electric Talon. People like yourself who give a damn about this. Sorry, YouTube, and everyone who is watching this now or in 30 years. I really appreciate your interest, and it touches my heart. And I'm so happy to be given the floor for the limited or long time that I've been given. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like I said earlier, it's a two-way street. It works both ways. I'm as deeply humbled and appreciative of that. So thank you for doing such an awesome interview and conversation with me, which I'm sure everybody will enjoy. Folks, don't forget to follow the Lumbar Endeavor. Go over to the lumbarendeavor.bandcamp.com. You can pre-order Vampyre from Electric Talon Records. And as Aaron said, he has his own version, which will be released on Bandcamp. Was it a month
I think
later.
I think the 31st of the month. So
Yeah.
just literally 10 days later ish. But I want to give the label their first chance.
Yeah. As always, all the links will be in the description when YouTube finishes processing. Yay! That's always don't get me started on that. But don't forget to support, subscribe. But see, I'm so used to promoting everybody else. Not complaining. Don't forget to support and subscribe to the channel. Stay up to date on everything that's going on. I am trying to get as many shows on for you all before we hit the Christmas weekend. So I'm trying to go more insane than usual and get so many people on here for you. I shall see you all in the next episode, which is Saturday with a crossover bands, Sava or now I can't pronounce them all live. It's on the channel, so that's all I say. Check it out. So, folks, as you know by now, I hit end stream, and there's always that uncomfortable pause moment where I'm thinking, has it ended, yet has it stopped? So let's do that in 3, 2, 1, and everybody take care, and thank you so much. See you on the next one.